We are now halfway through the NHL season, and the parity this year that exists in the league is off the charts. So today, let's do a mid-season review of every team that is inside the playoff picture and outside the playoff picture, and determine whether or not we think that these teams are playing above or below expectations. Now, this video is a little bit longer than the content that you're used to seeing on this channel, so if you guys like this, make sure you comment below if you want to see more long-form stuff like this, or if you'd rather more around the 10 to 15 minute videos that I typically put out here. Now, in this video, I'm joined by Nordic97 and Zach from the Checking From Behind podcast. So if you guys want to check out their content, the links will be in the description below. And with all that being said, let's talk about the mid-season review of the NHL. But what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. A little bit of a different style video today. I'm joined with Nordic97 and then Zach from Checking From Behind. They do a pretty cool hockey podcast themselves. But we're basically just going to be talking about the NHL season and give a ranking as about the mid-season review right now. I think we're about halfway through, so just wanted to talk about the teams that we think are doing great this season and teams who have fallen pretty short of expectations. So let's just start. How you guys doing today? Guys having a good day and stuff?
Yeah, we're doing good. Friday, feeling pretty good.
Yeah. All right. So here's what we're going to do for this tier list. We're basically going to be ranking each team. One of us is going to grab a team, and if the others decide that they should go up and down, we'll cast a vote, and we'll all make the decision about where we think they should land based on expectations and where these teams are this season and whether or not we think they're actually going to be able to compete this year. So we'll start off with you, Nordic. Where do you think about the Ottawa Senators? Where are you placing them in this tier list, and why?
The Ottawa Senators, they have definitely, they've had their struggles recently for sure, but they are coming off of what I would say like a 9-game road trip or something like that. But overall this season, they have been better than they have been in previous years at this point in the season. I wish I had like standings that I could back that up with. Right now, they're just a game above 500, but I would probably put them... I'd probably put them in the middle. I mean, I don't think, like, they are, like, they're doing really, really good. I'd probably, probably C. I'd probably put them in C, to be honest with you. I think they've been good, but they haven't been, like, really good. But they also haven't been bad either.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we got to bump Ottawa up one. Based on expectations, like, we all knew Ottawa was going to take a step, but based on where they started off and then going on that heater, obviously Allmark is hurt right now, so I think they're like 1-4 since he went out with injury. It's pretty clear that he's like the backbone of that team, but I would say maybe a B based on my expectations. I was actually pretty low on Ottawa, and I thought that they were going to finish bottom 2 in their division, so to kind of see them playing a little bit above my expectations, I could see B, but I'm not mad about C if you aren't, Zach.
No, I'm perfectly fine with C. I was going to throw them in C too. I mean, without Linus Ullmark, like, this team is frankly not a playoff team, and you could say that about a lot of teams too, that they're just not that good without one of their best players. But the fact that we saw Linus Ullmark go on a ridiculous hot streak, I think in like 6 games, he was 6-0 with the goals against under 1, which helps tremendously. And then ever since he's been out, they just haven't been the same team. So I think they're a playoff level team. I don't think they're certified like they should get in based on my expectations. Again, you could throw them B because I thought the team was right outside the playoffs and they're kind of overperforming some of my expectations, but I'm okay with C.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I'm not going to argue it too much. I do think that they're really relying on Allmark right now. And if they make the playoffs, I mean, sure. But you want to add something else, man?
I actually kind of agree with what you're saying with B. I brought up the standings from last season on January 10th, 2024, and the Senators were 30th in the NHL. They were nearly 10 games below 500, and at this point, they're a game above 500 in the wild card race. So I would agree with B, to be honest with you. I think
I think if we were ranking these, man, I would call B like a wild card-ish team. A would be like a playoff team, and then obviously Cup favorites. So I don't think that. I think they could even earn the 3rd spot in the Atlantic with how putrid Boston has been lately. And I think if you have the standings up, I think they still have 4 games in hand with Boston playing like 42 and them at like 39. So I could very easily see Ottawa taking that step and even winning that 3rd spot if they can win out like Tampa and stuff. But I think BC, we can leave them in the B for right now, but we can obviously bump them down if this tier gets a little bit crowded as we go on. But Zach, why don't you go ahead and take the Tampa Bay Lightning? They just beat down the Boston Bruins again. So what do you think about them this year?
I had Tampa in next year, I think it should not be a surprise if this team goes on and not only makes the playoffs, but also steals that the third Atlantic spot from Boston. Boston's, I think, lost, 6 straight games or something like that.
Yeah.
So if Tampa goes ahead and ends up playing either Toronto or Florida in the first round as the Atlantic third team, it wouldn't be a shock from my expectations. I think this team was still expected to make the playoffs, especially with how weak the bottom half of the Eastern Conference was. So I think the top 7 teams in the East were certified playoff teams. Tampa Bay being that 7th team, not a shock to me. B tier is.
Yeah, I could agree with B. I don't really see them being like a favorite right now, but Tampa has looked really good. And again, like Ottawa, I think they have like 4 games behind Boston. So I think Boston's like the most fraudulent 3rd seed in the division right now. So yeah, if you don't have anything else to add, man, I think that I'm cool with B.
Yeah, I agree with B. I think B is the right spot.
All right, cool. So next I'm up with the Seattle Kraken. I'm going to place Seattle in the D tier. I'm very low on Seattle. I think that they're in a rebuild. I think last year, or was it 2 years ago, whenever they last made the playoffs, was a bit of a fluke, and I just don't think that they're a legitimate playoff or wild card team. And I just think that the Pacific Division this year is going to be too tough for them to even get into a wild card spot. So with Calgary playing good, Vancouver obviously being in a slump, but being a way better team than them, I think this is just a rebuild year for them. Get a top 10 pick and try to continue building towards the future. You got Kakko, you have Shane Wright, Matty Beniers. That's the direction for this team right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, like, you could even argue first overall favorite, if we're being honest. I mean, like, they are a bottom 5 team in the NHL. They have a abysmal road record. They've only won 2 games in their last 10. They look horrible right now. It has been an awful year for the Kraken. But, yeah, I agree with D for sure.
They're not good now, but the way that they're building it is this is how an expansion team should be built. Like, they really overperformed expectations in 2022, making it to the second round and taking Dallas to 7 games. But the way that Vegas has just been able to build a consistent winner is really brainwashed us into thinking that most expansion teams, that the most expansion teams now should be able to almost win off the bat. And Seattle has the center depth. I love Stevenson. I love Beniers, but they're both second-line centers. And Shane Wright could be might be a first-line center if he can get up to his potential. But right now he's a third-line center. And getting Kakko, I think, is huge. So right now Seattle, I think, should be in the D tier. I don't know about first overall. I know they're a bottom-tier team in the league, but I think there's worse teams in the league than Seattle for sure.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Like, I think that there's like the dregs of the league, and I think Seattle's just a little bit above that. And I think you're just more concerned about how they're going to develop their young players. Like, is Matty Beniers going to be able to get back to his rookie season again? Is Shane Wright going to end up being a bust? I think he's looked a lot better this year, getting some opportunities, but I wouldn't consider them first overall favorite. I definitely am going to save that spot for a couple teams, but you might not be wrong, man. They haven't looked great this year, and I'm not expecting anything like significant to happen for them. So we'll leave them in D for now. If we feel like we got to move them around, we obviously can later. But you're back up, Nordic, with the Toronto Maple Leafs. How you feeling about them?
Toronto, for me, even though they just lost an absolutely abysmal one last night to Carolina, I don't know when this is uploading, but they've won 4 in a row. I think it's actually, 5 in a row. Up until that game, I think they're A or Cup favorite, to be honest with you. I'd probably lean more towards A, but I think Toronto has been way better than they were last season. Like, even standing-wise, they're better than they were last year. They just look so much better under Craig Berube. Like, so much better. Like, last year under Keefe, they were making costly mistakes, and I feel like this year they've been a lot better with that. They seem like, again, like they're playing a different form, and they look more disciplined out there as opposed to how they were last season with Keefe. That's how I stand with that. I think Toronto's been great this year. Some may argue Cup favor, but I'm going to put them in A for now.
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with A for Toronto. They're more of like, I got to see what works in the playoffs because they do this every year. They're pretty good. The one difference about Toronto this year is they usually come out of the gate pretty slow and then pick things up as the season goes on. But I think Berube's holding them a little bit more accountable this year, trying to get them to play hard-nosed hockey every single night. And I just think their blue line is so much better with Ekman-Larsson and Tanev back there. And then once Stolarz comes back too, they're going to look a lot better because he was playing phenomenal for them in net. So I just think if they can get healthy with Mitch Marner playing extraordinary, even with Matthews out, I think that this team is going to be a tough go. I would consider them for Cup favorite, but I have one or two teams in mind that I think are just slightly above them. So I'm cool with A if everyone else is.
I'm all cool with that.
Cool. So next up, you're up, Zach, with the New York Islanders. Very, very unorthodox season for this team, especially defensively and with goaltending, but it was kind of to be expected with Patrick Waugh putting more emphasis on offense. But what do you think about this team so far this year? I think they're last in the Metro right now, so not a great look for them.
I think they're in the same boat with Seattle with the worst future. We're going D. Forgive me if I'm wrong because I can't look up like standings or stats because I can only have one device on the Wi-Fi here at the Cruise. But the Islanders right now, it seems like the whole Islander thing of losing 6 million games in overtime, making the playoffs by about 2 points, and then being first round exits, that could possibly be over. I don't see this team making the playoffs. I think that their future is pretty much clucked, to be honest with you. It might be a miracle to make the playoffs if I'm the Islanders, especially with a team like Ottawa that has elite goaltending, who has the young guns up front, with Pittsburgh and even Columbus right now, who is on a heater, and they haven't slowed down since they got off to the hot start this season. So I think there's just a lot of teams to compete with the Islanders, and I think they're just going to keep falling and falling and falling, and eventually could find themselves last place in the Eastern Conference at one point.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I really do. There's nothing going right for the Islanders right now, and I've been in the camp to say, like, this team's got to, like, kind of burn it down for a minute now. I never really cared for the Horvat addition. I just don't think that they have much outside of, like, Dobson and Sorokin. Barzal, to me, I like him as a player, but I don't think that he should be the best player on a Stanley Cup winning team, and that's just the case right now for this team. So I'm very comfortable with them in D, and I think it's about time we see a lot of changes come to the Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, they're winning enough games to keep them somewhat in the race. By the way, they are tied for last in the Metro. My Flyers are tied with them. Anyway. Yeah, the Islanders, for me, it looks like, again, like you guys said it well, like they were able to play the style of hockey they were for a couple of years, make it to 2 Eastern Conference Finals, and it's kind of caught up to them now, and I feel like at this point, the management above is just refusing to kind of tear this down. They're kind of trying to hold on to something that isn't really worth holding on to. So, yeah, I agree with where the Islanders are at.
Yeah, cool. So next, I'm up conveniently with the Boston Bruins, and I'll try to make sure you guys get the teams that you're big fans of too, because I feel like you'll have a lot to say. But right now, despite them being third in the Atlantic, I'm cool with putting them at C until I see something change with this team. Offensively, the Bruins have been terrible this year. They lack top six scoring. Their power play is dreadful. Penalty kill is dreadful. They're losing to teams that are just like the Islanders, who they shouldn't be losing to. Most games, they're putting up like 1 or 2 goals, and people are talking really bad about Swayman. I think 2 games out of the last 5, he's had above a .930 save percentage, and the team can't score more than 1 goal. So scoring's a big issue for Boston. I don't think anyone's afraid of them, and the only reason they're in this spot right now is because they have 4 games ahead of teams like Ottawa and Tampa. So I expect them to slide a little bit. There's some rumors about them looking to get a few players, but until I see them actually improve, I'm just not sold on this team right now. So I'm cool putting them in C if you guys feel cool with that.
I would argue D, to be honest with you. It's been a pretty bad season for the Bruins. You are the Bruins fan, so I will stand with you with them in C. But again, like I feel like this team compared to last year has just gotten so much worse, and we thought they actually got a little bit better with those signings of Lindholm and Zadorov, at least a little bit better. But the thing with Swayman at the beginning of the season, Montgomery being fired, when again, it really wasn't his fault. And then the Sacco boost happens, but now we're at this point again where they just can't seem to score. It's just been a pretty awful year for the Bruins. But yeah, I can agree with C. They are still in contention. They're still there. They can easily turn it around, but yeah, there's been a lot of negative this year, I feel like, more than usual.
Yeah, I am totally with that. I could push D. Right now, I still think they're C just a little bit, just because they are still a playoff bubble team. I don't see them really falling down dramatically unless they just turn this losing streak into a 10-plus gamer, which I don't think will happen because it is Boston. But still, you never know. If they're getting poor play from everybody, even Jeremy Swayman. So, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens from here.
They're on that
Yeah.
kind of bridge right now, but I can't put them in the same tier as Seattle and the Islanders because one, they are in a playoff spot right now. That's a little bit disrespectful, and then two, like it is Boston. People count them out for the most part, and even as a fan, like they surprise you all the time with just like the culture that they have in that locker room, and they do have players like Pastrnak, McAvoy, Swayman, whereas like Seattle and the Islanders, they're not. They kind of don't have that same superstar within their system, so again, the future for Boston is definitely first overall favorite within the next 5 years. But for right now and the potential of them making a move this year that could bring them up a little bit, I think it's fair to say that they're beneath these two teams, but they are at least a C team because they are in the playoffs. So we'll see, but they could definitely fall down as the season continues to go. But Nordic, you're up now. You got the Dallas Stars, a pretty interesting team, actually. Where are you going to put them?
Dallas has been, I'm going to be honest, they've been a little bit underwhelming this year, in my opinion. Like, they still have been really good. They've actually won 6 in a row, so I guess I really can't say that. But I feel like last year was a little bit better. I'm still going to put them in the same tier as Toronto in A. I just don't think... Like, I'm not as sold on them this year as I have been in previous years. I think there needs to be some changes on the blue line. That's their biggest problem right now. I feel like there needs to be some upgrades defensively, and I meant not defensively. But I overall think that it's still been a good year for the Stars. They've won 6 in a row up to this point. They are top 10 in the NHL, but I also think at the same time that they've been a little bit more underwhelming this year than previous years.
Yeah, what's actually interesting about them is with the Tyler Seguin injury, there's a lot of room for them to do something big here with him going on LTIR and then probably not coming back till the playoffs. They have some cap room that they could work with at the deadline that could make them like really deadly if he comes back and then say they're able to add a top free agent or a trade target, at the deadline. So, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with them at A. They haven't looked as good as I thought. I really wanted them to really run home with the division, especially with the early struggles from Colorado and now Winnipeg kind of coming back down to earth. So I'm cool with A. I don't have them as a cup favorite right now, but really keep a close eye on them at the deadline because with that cap space, they could really make a cool move.
Yeah, I'm completely cool with it. They're in between cup favorite and eighth, in my opinion. I just want to see them do a little bit more, and I expected them to kind of run away with the Central Division by now, and they haven't yet, which could be concerning. But again, like you said, Jimmy, if they go out and make a splash move and Sagan comes back in round one of the playoffs, this team might be one of the most dangerous teams come playoff time, but we'll see.
All right, cool. So now you're up, Zach. You got the Pittsburgh Penguins. This another one. They're still in it, man. They're still competing for the spot. Where are you going to put them?
This one's tough because I want to lean D, but also with how they've been playing, I kind of want to do C, but they've been this up and down team. We're gonna go D. I can't put them with the Bruins. I know the Bruins have been struggling basically all season. But I feel like the Penguins are on the same level of Seattle and the Islanders, and I don't think the Penguins are going to be quite able to get in. With when you have Crosby, when you have Malkin playing at the level they are, they always have a shot. But I think it's going to be the same story like last season. They're going to get hot at some point. They already have gotten hot a couple times this season. They're going to get hot right after the deadline. They're going to go on in like 12 games. They're going to win 8, 9, or 10 games in that stretch. They're going to find themselves in a playoff spot by a point or two or out by a point or two. And then they're going to fall off the face of the earth. And that is most likely going to happen this season. Now, I'm not going to sit here and hate on the Penguins because I think that they do have a legitimate shot to get in. But I just don't think they're going to have enough firepower and enough will to be able to do so.
Recently, oh my God, this team makes me like actually really frustrated because they'll be like, oh yeah, we're going to tear it down. And then all of a sudden they'll go on like a heater, as Zach said. The last couple of games the Penguins have played, especially down the second half of the month of December, there have been games where they're losing or winning in overtime after they're blowing a 4-1 lead. Like, they have no business winning some of these games that they're winning. Like, right now, in the overall standings, they're 19th with above 500 record. I swear, literally over half of the games they played this season, I don't know if that's a true fact, but I swear over half of them have gone to extra time. And the fact that, like, they're getting all these overtime loss points and they're winning all these games in overtime and it's getting them more points. And they're going to end up exactly where they were last year. Either they're barely just going to make it in or they're barely going to miss and end up with the 15th overall pick.
Yeah, I think that's really fair. The only reason I'm a little bit hesitant with D is because, and maybe we have Ottawa too high, fellas, because when I'm looking at this tier list, Ottawa kind of stands out to me compared. I personally think that they belong here. They're about on the same level as Boston. I just think that Boston has been a little bit more lucky with, one, playing a few more games than these teams, and two, just squeaking away with a few wins that they probably shouldn't have won with, and having that additional like head coach boost from Sacco joining. But I'm cool with D if you guys want to keep him here. I just feel like the Penguins are really trying to make a push this year, and when everything kind of finishes, I feel like they'll be on the same page as Boston, just competing for a wild card spot and kind of being in the mix of things, but ultimately I'm not sure if they'll make it or not. Whereas these two teams, like, I don't see them being anywhere near a wild card spot versus the Penguins, where like they'll probably do what they do every year and be like 5 to 4 points back. So that's the only reason why I'm going to try to bump them up C, but I'm cool if you guys want to keep D.
So are we thinking that if we throw Pittsburgh up at C, that we put Ottawa down at C too, with Pittsburgh and Boston as well?
Yeah, I guess the way I'm looking at these tiers right now is like these are guaranteed playoff teams to us, right? We all agree on that. And these are teams that we think are going to be like third in their division, maybe wild card. Whereas this one, I feel like it's a fringe wild card tier, right? And that's where I think Boston is right now. And I do think that Pittsburgh is a fringe wild card team. They should be at least around the Boston area. But if you guys think that they're below that because you think that they're not capable, then this makes sense. But I don't see Seattle even being close to a playoff spot, where I do see Pittsburgh at least competing at some points in this season and maybe being there at the end.
I agree.
But we can keep it in D. It's everyone's choice. I'm going to vote for C. If you guys want to keep D, you can. If you want to vote for C, you can do C.
We can go C mainly because of how me and Nordic ended up explaining it was more of like throwing them in C. Like they might be in the playoffs, they might not be, but they'll be lingering off season.
And we can bump it down if we want to.
Boston.
We can bump it down at the end, guys, if we feel like it. Like if this tier is again like filled with other teams like Boston that we feel like are pretty guaranteed, then I think Pittsburgh will stand out to us then. But I believe it is my turn. I have the Edmonton Oilers, and this is going to be a little bit unpopular because I feel like people think that they are going to be up here, but I'm just going to put them in A. There's a couple things that concern me about the Oilers, and that's their forward group scoring outside of McDavid and Draisaitl. I feel like come playoff time, obviously they're going to get their points, they're going to get their goals, but you need to start seeing a little bit more production from this team. And they've looked a lot better recently. I think Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard have really picked it up in net. They're getting a few more goals coming from guys like Zach Hyman and stuff, but I think I need to see a little bit more from some of their acquisitions like Jeff Skinner, maybe a little bit more from Zach Hyman throughout the rest of the season, and then guys like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins stepping up a little bit. Defensively, I still think they have their problems, and I don't think that Evan Bouchard is playing to the same extent that he was last year. We're still dealing with the Darnell Nurse stuff, and there's just a few question marks with this team that I'm not fully convinced that they're much better than last year, and I do feel like they went further than they probably should last year. So I'm going to put them in A. I still think that they're a very legit playoff team and a tough go, but they're not my cup favorite for right now.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that they are as good as they were last year. Maybe that was just because they went on that 16 game heater or whatever, how long it was. I can totally see them not being in cup favorite. I also do agree, like, they need some more impact from the guys they brought in. We thought they were going to be really good signings, but so far they haven't been as good as we thought they would be. So yeah, I think they definitely are. They are still really good, but they aren't like cup favorite as they were last season at this point in the season, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people's expectations got wrapped around of Stuart Skinner's ridiculous second half playoff run last year, and with Connor McDavid and Draisaitl, it's like, well, this team is gonna be a cup favorite. And I think Skinner has been very inconsistent this season. They haven't gotten a lot of depth scoring, like you guys mentioned. Skinner and Arvidsson have been very underwhelming for this team, and Bouchard just hasn't been the guy he was the last season or two. So if this team goes out and makes the cup final, I kind of won't be surprised. But again, if they are like second or third round exits, again, I won't be surprised. So I think they're almost in that between A and cup favorite, but they're not quite in the cup favorite, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we'll keep them here. Obviously, again, we can move it if we want to, but I have some question marks about the Oilers, and I feel like they've just been the favorites in the odds like all year long, that people just expect you to put them in cup favorite, but there's some stuff they need to improve on. Like I said, they're relying way too much on Draisaitl and McDavid. But Nordic, you're up now with the St. Louis Blues, been a little bit improved under Jim Montgomery. Do you feel like they should be in the wild card mix, or do you feel like they should be down with the Dreads?
I would, as of right now, well, they're literally like in the same exact, around the same point in the standings as they are Boston and Pittsburgh. So I would agree. Like, I think they should be in C. They definitely gotten better under Jim Montgomery, but the consistency is still lacking a little bit. Like, they're 5-4-1 in their last 10. They're just inconsistent. And I think that for sure there's a whole second half of the season to play. But overall, I'm not entirely too high on them. I don't think, like, they're as bad as, like, you know, Seattle and the Islanders. Like, they're not that terrible. But I do think at the same time, like, they're in the same stratosphere as, like, Pittsburgh and Boston.
Go ahead. I think it's a little lag, Zach. Go for it.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah, so when you look at St. Louis, I think they have, honestly, a legitimate shot to sneak into the playoffs. But the only thing, though, is that the 8 teams above them, I think, are a level at least ahead of them. And John Montgomery's been good, but you just need more production out of some of your guys. Robert Thomas has been great. I know Bennington has been good for parts of the season. So I think St. Louis is in that same spot as Pittsburgh, where they're almost in no man's land, where they're either going to barely make it in or they're barely going to miss.
Yeah, I'm into this team a lot right now. Like I said in the past, I think Jim Montgomery's a great coach. I think the offer sheets that they gave to Holloway and Broberg are looking amazing right now. So I think this team is pulling all of the right strings, but the Central is just so tough with Minnesota being good this year. And then, like we talked about, the Pacific has a lot of good teams. So I feel like if St. Louis was in the East, we'd be talking about them a little bit more seriously as a playoff contender. But they're kind of one of those teams where if they get in, I could see them actually being a tough go as well. So I'm comfortable with putting them in C. I could see them making a wild card spot. But at the same time, they could just barely miss. But the future's not as dark for St. Louis as I would have thought about 2 years ago. So that's a good sign for that team. And then I believe it is Zach's turn with the Anaheim Ducks.
With Anaheim, I'm going to go D tier. I know they've played better hockey. They've played 500 hockey. Lucas Stolzstol is a phenomenal goalie. But I don't see this team potentially making the playoffs. They're just 2 years away from being in the position of St. Louis, of Ottawa, Pittsburgh, Boston, the teams above them. And if Anaheim, out of nowhere, I know they're in the Western Conference, but if they went in the 7-game series against Pittsburgh, Boston, Ottawa, even St. Louis, I think Anaheim wouldn't be able to hold their own yet. So that's kind of my deciding factor in this.
Yeah, they've absolutely been better than they have been in previous years, in my eyes. But again, they still are, like, they're still not there yet. They're they are way better than they were last year. Like, I think a lot of it lies on Lucas Dostal. Last year they were over 10 games below 500 and they were at 29. They were like 29th in the NHL. This year they're only 2 games below 500. So I feel like they have improved, but again, I do agree with you. They should still be in that same tier as Seattle and the Islanders.
Yeah, they're in that tier, but the future's a lot brighter. So it's like a tough tier to put them in because you almost want to put them higher just because there's a lot more upside with this team. But like, there's no expectations to make the playoffs. It just is more development time for these young players. And there's still a few question marks with this team. Cutter Gauthier hasn't looked great since he joined the team. And, of course, Trevor Zegras having his injury and then really regressing from 2 seasons ago is a big question mark. But, yeah, I'm comfortable with Anaheim here. I don't think that they're a first overall favorite because they're just a little bit too talented for that. But they're definitely not making the playoffs. So I think D is a pretty good tier for them. And now it's me with Montreal. And this is a fun one to me. I really like this team. This is like I really want them to get in the playoffs kind of team. But I'm comfortable with putting them in C because they're not there yet and they probably won't make it. But I do feel like they have a lot going for them. They're one of the hottest teams in the NHL right now. I think they're like 9-2-0 in their last like 11 games. They just look phenomenal. So I'm going to put them in C just because there's a lot of upside with this team. Caulfield's clicking. The only question mark to me is really Slafkovsky and him continuing to develop because he hasn't looked as good as last year. But I think Martin St. Louis is getting the best out of this team right now, and I think potentially we could see them as a wild card team, but probably they'll miss. So I'm putting them slightly above these guys.
Yeah, I think if we're basing it off of expectations, Montreal probably would be in like A.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think they probably should be in C. Like they really have been a lot better than they've been in years prior. And honestly, they've been so much fun to watch. Watching Cole Caulfield, watching Jacob Dobesh in his first couple of starts, you know, seeing this team as a whole producing the way they are, it has been so much fun to watch them. They are one of the hottest teams in the NHL right now. It's been awesome to watch. So, yeah, I will agree with C, though, in terms of the context of this tier list. But, yeah, I think they've been awesome.
Yeah, C is perfectly fine with me. Ever since Patrick Laine got inserted into the lineup in the beginning of December, the Canadiens have been one of the best teams in the league, right? So I think the Canadiens are still a year or two away. They're a really fun team to watch, but they're going to be lingering around the wildcard spot the entire season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not much else to add. I mean, just based on this tier list, like obviously this is like where we think they're going to finish the year. Like our expectations are a lot lower for Montreal this year. They would probably be in like an S if anything because they've just looked incredible. But now we're moving to you, Nordic. We're not doing the Arizona Coyotes, even though I would love to talk about them. Cup favorite. But we're actually going to be talking about the Detroit Red Wings right now, okay? So they've been much improved under McClellan, have gotten off on a bit of a winning streak right now. Could just be a head coaching bump. Are you rebuying in on the Red Wings? Do you feel like they can be competitive, or are you sticking with the early season expectations and thinking that they're a little lower?
I don't know. They're kind of a difficult one. They have definitely risen up in the standings more than, you know, they've been better in recent. I would put them in the same tier as Montreal, if we're being honest. I'd put them in C. You could argue like the top of D tier, but like I don't know. It's so hard because again, like they are so good under Todd McClellan, but in the months prior before that under Lalonde, they were terrible. Every single game, they were absolutely horrendous. I remember they had some of the worst underlying stats in the entire NHL. Like a lot of them belong to the Red Wings, and I think under McClellan things have gotten so much better. So I think they probably finish out around where they were last season, maybe a little worse, but yeah, I think C right now is where I put them.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough because we kind of are grading them based on that, but like this is kind of where we think they rank with other teams in the league. And while I do think they're slightly below, we can't really sit on the fence. They're clearly like a C minus, D plus at this point this season because they're slightly above these teams. But I think C is a fair justification because like Pittsburgh, like Montreal, and St. Louis, I feel like they're going to be in the playoff race, but they will likely miss. What I'm just noticing from this list is despite Boston being so bad, maybe we'll have to bump them up at the end based on kind of our criteria for this list because Boston is a little bit more competitive than these other teams right now.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm pretty comfortable. I think everything you said hit the nail on the head. It's perfect. Like they got that head coaching boost. Is it sustainable, or are they going to fall back into their ways like they did under Lalonde? We'll just have to kind of wait and see.
I 100% agree.
All right. So now, Zach, you're up with Calgary. Different than expected this year. I was expecting them to hover around here, but where do you think they're going to be finishing off this year?
Oh, we're going to go D tier. Most people that are watching this right now probably don't know I picked them to be the worst team in the entire NHL. Obviously not happening. But they have been slowly declining ever since they got off to that ridiculously hot start. I think Calgary is just one of those teams where they can put it together, but they're just not able to. And Dustin Wolf has been fantastic. Vladar has been good for them too at times. But I just think it's time for Calgary to start selling off even more pieces like they have the last couple of seasons. And I think they are a little bit better than the teams like the Ducks. I think they're better than the Islanders and Kraken, but I think they still fall in that same tier because if you look at the C tier that we have, I don't think Calgary is better than any of those teams, nor do I think they finish in the standings higher than any 5 of those teams. So ultimately, that is really what I'm going with here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that they are not I don't even think that the organization expected them to be in this position at all. So I think we're going to see a big fire sale from this team because they know they're not going to make the playoffs. And if they do, they're not doing anything. So there's really no point. While I don't agree with you that they're the worst team in the league, I do think that they are a bottom 10 team by the end of everything. So I'm cool with D tier.
I think if they decide to sell at the trade deadline, they will be towards the bottom. But yeah, I think overall, like, I mean, this has been a really good first half of the year for the Calgary Flames. I just don't know if it lasts. Again, they have a lot of teams that are, catching up with them, and they're not comfortably in a spot either. They are just outside of a wild card 2 spot with a lot of notable teams catching up behind them very fast. So, yeah, I guess I can agree with them being in D tier. But you also got to consider, too, they're above St. Louis. They're above Anaheim. They're above a bunch of the other teams that they're below right now in this. So.
Yeah, I'm just not a believer. I know it sounds crazy, but I just don't believe that this team has enough to really do it. I don't see a reason to invest in them. I don't think that their star players are good enough. And for the most part, I just feel like they're going to sell off a lot of their pieces like the Kadris and even potentially some of their defensemen that have looked solid for them this year. So, yeah, bright spots for the future, but I don't want to keep seeing a scorer in Calgary. I want to see them get younger and quicker and turn a new page at this point. So now it's me up with the Minnesota Wild. Guys, I want to put them here. I know that sounds crazy. I want to put them here. I'm bought in on the Wild. I love this team. I love Kaprizov. I love Gustafsson. Their defensive core is great. They got young, great players coming up. Obviously, that'll be their future. Cap space opening up. But I got to be fair. They're an A team to me this year. They're not quite cup favorite. Not quite cup favorite, but I would love to put them there just because I think that this team, they're exceptional so far. Kirill Kaprizov, I think, is hurt right now, so that's a bit of a blow for them. But once he's back, I think they're going to be a tough go in the playoffs. Kind of similar to Toronto, though. They've had a bad track record in the playoffs. We're going to have to see a little bit more in the postseason, but I'm cool with A right now if you guys are.
Yeah, I'm fine with A. A is perfect place to put them.
No one's going cup contender?
Yeah. I want to go cup contender. I'm going to be realistic and do it. I can't. They're A. I think they're fine. They only go how far Kaprizov takes them.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, I'm being a little bit over the top on this one just because I like their team a lot, but I think it's pretty fair. So Nordic, you're up with the Colorado Avalanche now. A lot better with Mackenzie Blackwood now. Do you think that this is sustainable or just kind of a little bit of a flash for them?
I'll go bottom of A. Bottom of A.
You gotta pick one.
Yeah, the bottom of A.
That's nothing. That's A. You gotta say A. Say it confidently.
Yeah. I mean the back of A, behind them. All three teams. That's what I mean.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think for Colorado, they have been great under their goaltending. I still have a few doubts, but I also think too, they're still a very good team, and I think they have a lot going for them. With McKinnon, they still have all that firepower. I think it's been overall I think it's been a good season for them.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's a lot going right for them right now. Still a few question marks. They need a little bit of help. I would say the thing they need to improve most is second line center. I think Middlestad has looked good this year, but I think the potential of Landeskog coming back or making a deal to kind of just boost up your center depth would be ideal for this team. But outside of that, I think the Blackwood trade and just kind of revamping your goaltending has really helped this team, and I could see them being real serious in the playoffs this year. So I'm cool with A.
The Avs in the H is fine. I think they're a little bit better than the teams in front of them that we have in the tier list. But Colorado went out and addressed goaltending. I think at some point they will address some more center depth. Casey Middlestad, he's been good for them. Been very inconsistent at times. He's been playing on their fourth line for a few games too. So, I mean, I guess we'll see. But they're kind of on the fringe of cup contenders. Let's see what they do with the trade deadline. Maybe that changes my opinion. I don't know.
All right. Well, now you're up with Vegas, Zach. Where are you putting Vegas? I think we all kind of know where they're probably going to go.
Favorite.
Yeah. At this point, I don't even want to talk about
team,
them, to be honest.
No, they just keep proving everybody wrong. They lost 6 pieces in the offseason, and now they're the best team in the league. What else can you ask for? Nothing.
Yeah, it's been great. Jack Eichel's looked great. You think that they're going to regress a little bit after losing so many players, but they're still right there and just looking phenomenal. So one thing about Vegas that I would be a little bit weary of is goaltending. I don't know how great Adin Hill's going to be, but hey, in the past he's proven us all wrong and won them the cup. So until they prove me otherwise, Vegas is going to be my cup favorite for right now.
Yeah, I agree. Vegas, no doubt in my mind, is the cup favorite. No doubt in my mind.
All right, now I'm up with New Jersey. Now, hear me out. Vegas is my cup favorite, but if there was a team from the East that I would look out for, it's this one. So if I'm saying like we're going to pick one team from the East and the West, this would be my pick. Obviously, we just have one cup favorite because only one can win, so I'll bump them down to A. But if we were going to pick a team from the East, I think New Jersey is definitely the one to keep an eye on. While they don't look 100% the best all the time, I do think that just comes with the growing pains of having a young team and also just going through an 82-game regular season. But until I can see them in the playoffs, I just really love the construction of this roster. I think Heischer has blossomed into a fantastic two-way center. Jack Hughes, obviously, their defense looks a lot better. And then Jacob Markstrom and Jake Allen, we've talked about this in the past. They just have completely changed the overall outlook of this team. So New Jersey, I'll put them in A. I would love to vote for them as a cup favorite if we had a team from the East too. But like I said, we're only doing one, so I still think Vegas has the edge. So A for New Jersey right now.
Jersey's been killing it with Sheldon Keefe. They've had some points in the season where I've had my doubts, but again, it's an 82-game season. Teams are going to struggle. They are second in the Metropolitan Division. They are top 10 in the NHL. Yeah, without a doubt, they're A.
Yeah, this team is A. They look good at a lot of points this season. They're on a stretch of only winning one game in their last 6 games, but nonetheless, so this team preseason was my cup pick, and I think they're still my cup pick. But there might be one team better in the Eastern Conference than them, 2 maybe.
Yeah, and we're getting to those 2 right now. So you're up next, Nordique, with the Washington Capitals. A very interesting team this year. So where are you putting them?
A.
A.
Hey, without a doubt in my mind, if I could put them in S, I would put them in S. If we were moving teams around in here, I'd put them at the top of A. They have been unreal this season. They have surprised me on everywhere. They are number 1 in the East. They are number 1 in the Metro with games in hand on almost every single team in the entire NHL. They have been incredible. Ovechkin's playing unreal. Their goaltending, which was meh at the beginning of the season, has looked insane. It has been all in all an incredible year for the Washington Capitals. So they're A.
Yeah,
maybe not top of A, but they're still A.
Yeah, like I said, if we're arguing for like teams from the East, I think almost all of them are coming out of the Metro to be a cup favorite. But yeah, Capitals look great this year. The Alexander Ovechkin chase was the only thing that I was looking forward to, but now there's like a whole different factor to this team, and they just look so fun. So yeah, they're an A team. They're, I think, right now atop their division. Maybe they're right below Carolina, but either way, those Capitals are looking really good this year, so they're an A for me.
Yeah. I'm totally with it. Right now, they're top 2 team in the Eastern Conference for me.
And Zach, you're up with Carolina. I'm guessing you feel pretty similar to the rest of us, where they're an A team this year.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I'm going to go A. I just want to see a little bit more from them come playoff time. But if we're talking about right now in the regular season, they're a top 3 team, 4 team at worst in the Eastern Conference. I think this team just needs to get its goaltending going. And if they can do that, I think they'll be scary. But we've been saying that since 2019, 2020. And I just think this team, if they can get over the hump, they'll be good.
Yeah, they just suffer from small market syndrome, I feel like, with not getting overly criticized when they're bad, but also not getting the praise when they're good, and every year they're good. So I think kind of like other top teams, people are just kind of sick of talking about them being so good in the regular season. So it's kind of show up or shut up for the Hurricanes in the playoffs this year, but they do belong in A for being so good so far. Cool. So I'm up with the San Jose Sharks. I'm just going to put them here. There's nothing too crazy happening in San Jose this year. This is a prospect watch year. Watch your young guys play. Watch them excel. They look great, a lot more entertaining. I've watched a few more Sharks games this year just because of Will Smith and Macklin Celebrini. So I think they're first overall favorite, though. I still think they have a long way to go in this rebuild.
Yeah, I've really liked San Jose this year. I'm not saying that they should be higher, but I've really liked them this year. I think they've been a lot of fun to watch Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith and the other guys that they got going on there. But I agree with you. They are a long shot away from becoming what they want to become. But if they get like a top 3 pick again and they get like, I don't know, like they need defense. So maybe they get like Matthew Schaefer. Like that's a loaded prospect core already, and you're adding more to it. Mike Grier's been cooking.
All right, I'm going to skip you right now, Nordic, because I want Zach to rank this team because I'm sure he's got a lot to say. This team, where are you putting the Buffalo Sabres, Zach?
I have a lot to say, but I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Put them at the end of C tier. I think they had. I don't know if it's me being biased. I don't. No. I don't think it's me being a little bit biased. Okay, the 13-game losing streak killed their season. I'm completely aware of that. Since that 13-game losing streak, they're 5-2-1. They're top 10 in the NHL in goals for against and goals against. Actually, I think it's like top 6 or 7. And they're also top 5 or 10 in special teams on power play and penalty kill percentage. And I think Lindy Ruff found what was wrong with the team, and they're starting to work on their issues. They're still in last place in the East. They're 7 games out at the moment. They have outscored opponents 22-11 in the last 6 games. And I did not like the Lindy Ruff fire at all. And during the losing streak, I was like, Lindy Ruff, I knew he wasn't the right coach until Lindy Ruff found what was going on inside the locker room, knew mentally, finally, after the 13-game losing streak, what was going on. And maybe them blowing the lead to Colorado a second time, losing in overtime, made the difference. I know that sounds crazy, but Lindy Ruff has been preaching, holding on the leads. They played their best defensive game last night against Ottawa, and it led to a 4-0 shutout. So we'll see. You guys might disagree with me because there's a little bit biasy going in on this, but I think they're at the end of the C tier at this point.
I'm going to just start. I was going to put them in first overall favorites, but I'm not that stupid and delusional. I will say D. I'm very comfortable voting them down to D. There's a lot that has looked better lately, but in the sample size that we've seen from half of this season, the fact that they're the worst in their division when every year they trick me into thinking that they're going to be a better team and they're just not. I'm kind of tired of giving them the benefit of the doubt. So until I see them actually rising in the standings and doing this very consistently, I'm comfortable with here. But obviously, I need Nordic's vote for that too. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm putting. I think they should be in D. You're
Right.
looking in terms of, like, I mean, you're putting them up there with teams that are like in contention for wild card spots. When again, the Sabres are like bottom 5 in the National Hockey League. So, again, I get that they have been better since this 13, 14-game losing streak, but at the same time, just like I don't think they have enough momentum to come out of this. We'll see.
I totally get it too because I was leaning D, but I did go C. And if this team goes out and they continue to prove everybody wrong, sure. But, yeah, like you guys said, it's a small sample size. They've done this all season. They've won 3 games, and then the next 3 games they lose immediately. So, I get it.
All right, man, I'm going to go back to you, Nordic. You got the Nashville Predators. I think you could probably be short and sweet with this one, too. What do you think?
What do you guys think? Let me ask what you guys think. I think they should be in
First
D.
overall.
I was actually going to say first overall favorites. It's just tough because you can only have one that you think is your first overall favorite, but I would probably say that Nashville, the way they're tracking it, deserves to be more like this. But I'm cool with even keeping multiple first overall favorites because it is a lottery. But I do think that they belong at the very bottom. Very disappointed in this team.
I think them and San Jose should be first overall favorites.
Yeah, and I would just say this is a lesson to every GM about how you can't just build a team from free agency. You have to draft and you have to develop, and free agency is just meant to help you get a little bit better when you're kind of on the bridge of being a good team. And the way they handled free agency this year, it was flashy, but you can't just bring in all of these veteran guys and expect them to just click and be your core for the future. So they're going to be in a tough spot, especially with the way this season's gone. So Columbus, I will take Columbus. I love this team, and I'm going to put them in C. Columbus has looked great this year. I think quietly, or maybe not even quietly, we're all rooting for the Columbus Blue Jackets to be successful this year, just based on everything that happened in the offseason. Just a fun team to watch. Their young players are finally coming up into fruition, and their record is showing it. I believe that they were in the wild card the other day. They're going in and out of it, and they're competing. Very similar to Montreal. Young guys are coming up. They look great. And while they may not have the flashy players like Montreal does with like Caulfield and Suzuki, I still think the potential is crazy here with this team. So I'm going to keep them in C. They probably will fall with the rest of the season. I don't expect them to make a playoff spot. But just like I said, with everything that happened in the offseason, this is just a really fun story for Columbus. So I'm going to put them in C.
Columbus, I don't think this is sustainable, but Zach Werenski is playing some of the best hockey of his career. Same with Marchenko, and Sean Monahan's been great for them. But if this team falls back down to the D tier in a month, 2 months time max, I really wouldn't be shocked at all.
Yeah, I'll keep them here. Like I said, I wouldn't have even been mad if you guys said D, because realistically they're going to be out of the playoffs. But based on this season so far, like expectations-wise, this team has really exceeded a lot of my expectations. So good for Columbus. Like I said, it's a really nice story. And Nordique, you're up with the Blackhawks, kind of like the Sharks. Is there really anything to talk about outside of their young prospects?
First overall favorite.
Yeah.
They are like in the first overall favorite by a mile. Well, not by a mile. They're only like they're only 2 points back of.
They're a bad team. They're not a fun team to watch.
They're still a bad team. The Winter Classic really showed that. No effort. Literally, just like the team is just not good. They're not good enough yet. So yeah, they are in contention for yet again another first overall pick.
Yeah, it's just Connor Bedard and the rest of them. That's how you look at this team right now. Yeah, There's just not much to look at. Again, like the Sharks, just enjoy watching the young prospects come up, but nothing really to pay attention to right now. All right, Zach, you're up with the Florida Panthers now.
They're a cup favorite. This team, they're reigning champs. I still think that they had the best shot out of the East to end up going to the Stanley Cup Finals. This team has looked phenomenal. Bobrovsky's been great. Kachuk's been great. Reinhart has shown us that last season wasn't a fluke. Barkov's been overall great. And overall, this team is just going to dominate the Eastern Conference like they have the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, I agree. If we're picking one team, like I said, I would love to go for New Jersey, but I think if we're going off of experience and putting your money where your mouth is, I think Florida deserves that spot. And they're still showing that they're a really good team this year, so I'm not mad with them being a cup favorite too.
They won the cup last year. They are still a favorite.
I'm up with Vancouver now. I've kind of been struggling based on where they were last year. I think I want to put them here, but I think it'd be a little bit disrespectful to the potential of this team. Just the rumors around this team, I'm sick of hearing about the JT Miller, Elias Pettersson stuff. Figure it out. Quinn Hughes, phenomenal as always, going to be a Norris finalist. Once Thatcher Demko gets his boots again, he should be good. I expect them to be in the playoffs, but I might not take them as seriously as last year. We'll just have to see how they recover from like the Hronek injuries and if they can maybe improve this defense, because that's been a real sore spot for them. But I was expecting to have them somewhere in cup favorite or A this year, but they've really fallen to C in my opinion. So what do you guys think? Maybe even B. We could talk about a B potential, because I do think that they are better than a lot of the teams in this category. So if you guys feel like a B is more appropriate, I could.
Yeah, I don't think they're at the bottom of C. I put them like towards the top.
Are you guys voting for them to be more in this tier? Like, could you see the season finishing out with Vancouver where, like, maybe the start of the year has just been more related to injuries with Demko, Quinn Hughes, and Hronek all missing time, and maybe we're just not seeing the best version of this team? Or is this whole JT Miller and Elias Pettersson thing really that splitting that this team is going to be going from President's Trophy team to below a playoff team? I don't know if I'm there yet, but I put them in C, so I would need to hear from you guys if you want to bump them up.
Yeah, you know what? Go C. I think that the JT Miller and Pettersson thing is I feel like it kind of has a chokehold on the locker room at times. And the fact that the Canucks right now are not comfortably in a playoff spot kind of is a red flag to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Nordique, you're up with the New York Rangers. I feel like I'm going to have a very different take from you here, so I want to see where you put them, so go for it.
They are either at the bottom of C or the top of D. I'm going to go, at least right now, the bottom of C, right next to Vancouver. They're kind of similar to Vancouver in a sense. Everybody's talking about, and I even said it, like, in my videos, that I thought that, like, they are, like, having a historical, insane collapse. They're only a game of below 500. Like, they're not, like, in that bad of a spot. Like, they're not, like, in the territory of Nashville, where this season's, like, a complete waste. They're still in it. I think it would be just recency bias to put them in D, to be honest with you.
I'm actually going to vote for them to go to B. I think that this team is way better than what they're playing as. I do think they have their struggles, but in the end, I think this team's going to be a playoff team, and I think they're going to be one of the toughest teams to play against. They're going to be the Vegases of last year, where you saw a lot of struggles out of the gate. Vegas ends up being a wild card 2 spot, and they play Dallas. you're going to see the Rangers versus like the Panthers or the Maple Leafs in the first round, and they're going to be really tough to beat with Shesterkin. And I think that they're going to fix this roster, whether that means they trade for a guy like JT Miller and move on from Zibanejad, or if they just figure it out. I mean, they played against the Devils last night, and they looked like they were kind of back in their groove. So I want to vote them up to B, but I think if we vote New York up to B, we have to vote Vancouver up to B. So I'm going to leave that to you, Zach. Do you feel like you're on my side with the Rangers, or do you feel like they're more what Nordic was saying?
This team, I think the inconsistency levels is ridiculous. I think one night, like, they ended up beating the Devils in overtime last night. Great game from them, by the way, but then there's other nights where they get blown out 5-1 against a team that they have no business losing to. So I think C tier is respectable with the Canucks, but if they do make the playoffs, like Jimmy said, I think they could make some noise and be a tough out. But right now, I just don't see it happening.
All right, fair enough. Like I said, we're going to probably have to move a team or two around at the end. So if we feel like this tier is too overcrowded, I'm starting to feel like maybe the discrepancy with this tier is starting to become a little bit weird. So we're going to have to kind of define what we mean by this, because I feel like these three teams, Boston, Vancouver, and New York, they're still a level above these ones. Maybe not so much Boston, but we can revisit that at the end. Nordique, I'll let you go ahead and talk about the Philadelphia Flyers. How you feeling about them?
Oh, boy. Philadelphia, I'll put them in D. Top of D.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a good spot.
Their goaltending has been terrible. Their defense has not been good. Maybe not even top of D. I'd love to put them in first overall favor because I want the first overall.
Hey, it's your vote. Your vote.
I'm not putting them at first overall. I'm just saying I would love the first overall pick. Yeah. I think that, it's been an abysmal year from this team. They have they are not what they were last season. They have fallen back down to earth. They're in D.
Yeah, there's nothing much you can say about them. They're a good D team, I think, for right now. But, hey, you never know. Maybe they'll go on a stretch of good games and get themselves back into the mix of things. I have Zach. You're up with the LA Kings. A pretty actually surprising team this year. How are you feeling about them?
We're going to go A tier. I think this team has exceeded expectations just a little bit, but I think this is the best team LA has had in recent years. LA is a team that the last 3 years they have been first-round exits, all three to the Edmonton Oilers, by the way. And if these two teams matched up, don't call me crazy, I think LA has a significant chance to knock Edmonton out of the first round if they end up matching up somehow. I just think LA has been playing this level of hockey where last season we saw for a lot of it where they played the 1-2-1 trap and they're the scoring team to watch. Now it feels like they're playing looser. Byfield got off to kind of a slow start. He's been better as of late. Their defense in general, their team defense in general has been great as per usual. So LA right now in A, I don't think they're better than any of the teams above them in that tier, but I do think they are a tier above Ottawa, Tampa Bay, and every other team.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that not having Drew Doughty and having him still come back is only going to make this team even better. So I'm in the same camp as you. I think that another series against the Oilers, which is probably going to happen, it's going to go to 7. We'll just have to see who ends up pulling out, but I could realistically see them actually getting by the Oilers this year if they meet up.
It looks like that might happen again for the 100th year in a row. I think that they are in the right spot. They're exactly where they belong.
Yeah, cool. So now I'm up with the Winnipeg Jets. Kind of interesting. I feel like the Jets are still around the top of their division, but do I really believe in them in A? I don't want to say that. I want to say they're more of a B team. I think when I think about the Jets, their playoff woes, and how they always do this every year, I still think that defensively they're going to need to do something to make themselves a little bit more competitive in the playoffs, because if I see them match up again with Colorado, there's no way I'm taking them in that kind of matchup. Or even if I see them match up against Dallas, it's going to be tough for them to get by. Do I think that their record is better than what I think most people expected? Sure. But I still was high on the Winnipeg Jets to be a playoff team and to be at the top of their division. I don't know why people thought otherwise. So I still think they're a B team. Some things that I would like to see improve with this team, maybe get a little bit more forward help. You lost to Foley and Monahan from last year and didn't really add all that much. I think Nemestikov's your second line center. So to maybe see a couple improvements with this team would be nice, but I'm going to keep them in B for now.
I thought they were going to be a little bit worse this year. To be honest with you, I think they have definitely exceeded my expectations. I would argue A, but we have a lot of teams in A. I think maybe they should be at like the top of B. At the top of B, not the bottom.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I don't know if there's much else to really add with the Jets either. I feel like if they have Hellebuck, he's going to be good, but in the playoffs, we just have to see. So if everybody else is cool with B, I'm cool with B for them.
I'm cool with it.
Yep.
Cool. All right, and I'll let you finish off, Nordic. It's the Utah Hockey Club. Where are you putting them?
This is actually my other team that I like because I was a former Coyotes fan, and they broke my heart and went to Utah.
All right.
Utah for me is C. I think they are battling alongside all of those teams that are in that same tier for like a wild card spot. So yeah, I can completely. I think that's exactly where they should be. They've actually been better than I thought they would be, to be honest with you.
Yeah, give it a year or two. We'll see them competing a little bit more, but it's a fun story. New team. I think all of those players get a fresh start, and it's been a pretty solid year for them, especially with how hot they came out of to start the season. But of course, things came back down to earth. Funny thing about this team, though, is I want to see Vejmelka get a few more starts because he's just looked way better than Connor Ingram. So I think it would be nice to see them try to go back to that a little bit more. But you're right. Give it a year or two. We'll see Utah competing a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm with that. Utah right now they're kind of a fun team to watch. I think they're still a year or two. I thought expectations coming into this season were set really high by some people in the mainstream media. I thought having them in the playoff spot in general was kind of outlandish. But they are still that team that's going to hover around, linger around, might make some noise here and there, but ultimately will end up missing.
All right, so to finish off this video, we're each going to get one team that we can either vote to move up or down in these tiers. Nordic, why don't you go ahead and start? Do you have a team that you would like to move around in this tier list, or are you comfortable with how we ranked everything?
So we have, if I counted right, we have 14 teams in Cup favorite A and B. So that means those are like 14 teams that make the playoffs, and then obviously that adds up to 18 teams below that. In my opinion, I think we did good. I think that I wouldn't change a lot of things. I don't know though, because like the B tier is a little bit tough. Because like I would rather I think Winnipeg. I kind of think Winnipeg should be an A team with how they've been this year. Not a cup contender, but I feel like they should be an A team. That's just me, but
I'm actually comfortable with keeping it B. Zach, that's up to you if you think they're A or B, but I think they're more of a B team and fall there.
Okay.
Cool, B. All right. For me, I am going to stick with it, and I'll give you guys the option, but I feel like one of these two teams needs to go up. I think that either Vancouver or the Rangers need to be in B. I just think that they are much better than the teams that are in that tier, and I think that this is more recency bias that they're falling into C, but more so if I had to pick one of them, I think Vancouver should be in B.
Yeah. Throw the Canucks up, mainly because I think we might only have 6 Western Conference teams in there. I don't even know, not that it really matters, but the Canucks, I think they definitely could make the playoffs.
It's tough because I just feel like having Ottawa in this tier makes them stand out a lot to me for some reason, because we are putting teams like Montreal and Detroit below, but we're putting teams like Boston and New York who, yes, they haven't looked the best this year, but they've shown us that they're capable of doing this, where Ottawa, we're kind of just like, this is the year for them, even though, like, let's be honest, has Ottawa really done anything that extraordinary to put them in the same tier as these teams? So I'm okay with keeping them there, of course, because they have earned it a little bit, but I just think the Canucks fit here a little bit better. And then, Zach, why don't you finish us off? Do you have a team you'd like to move up or down, or do you feel pretty comfortable with the list?
No, I think right now everything's fine. If there was one team that I want to move up, maybe Colorado up to Cup contenders, but Vegas is playing out of their mind, so I want to keep it like how it is. So I think we're all set in stone with everything.
All right, cool. Well, this is our tier list, guys. I know we were a little bit kind of shaky with the definition, but it's basically kind of how we see teams finishing off for the year, where we have our cup contenders, our serious playoff teams that are basically a lock. Then we have teams that are most likely going to make that like third wild card spot, and then teams that are going to be kind of on the wild card spot outside. Then obviously teams that are missing, and then first overall favorites. So let us know if you agree with this tier list, and what would you change about it, and what would you keep. As always, thanks you guys for watching these videos. Make sure you like this one, subscribe to the channel, and thanks guys for joining me for this episode. I'll see you guys around.
Of course. Peace out.
Peace out, guys.